What's good, ladies and gentlemen? Ackle and you're, of course, welcome back to each and every one of you to episode 8 of the Barrens Chat. Ladies and gentlemen, I am so happy to be back here with all of you. Happy Friday. Happy Friday. How's the week been? Have you guys been well? You know, it's the end of the week. It's the start of the weekend. Of course, everyone's going to be excited for that. Why wouldn't you be? You finally get to tell your boss to go fuck himself and you get to go play some video games. So I think all in all, that's a good thing. Or maybe you like your boss. Maybe you are your boss. In which case, you know, don't say that. That might not go over well. And also don't say it to his face. And will definitely not go over well. But hey, how you guys doing? Are you guys well? Matthew, how you doing? Bugger, how you doing? Nihora, how you doing? Abaddon, Digitmark, Epic Thulu, Phage Lives, Disc 1 Final Boss, Frozen Solid, Raymer, Kriam, how you guys doing? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Very happy to be back here with all of you. Creon, how you doing? Slash, how you doing? Ooh, it's been a busy week. It's been a very busy week. Go Fires. Oh crap. Okay, here we go. People already banging off in chat. So I guess we should start by, you know, getting all of the business stuff out of the way. And this is a tough conversation. Look, guys, I get it. It's not as if I want to talk about these things. It's tough. You know, no one wants to have a conversation like this. It's kind of like the breakup conversation, except maybe worse even than that. Almost like it kind of like this portion usually of the stream reminds me sort of like the bird and the beast. It's just not a thing that I want to talk about. But I feel like it's something that we must talk about. I think it's very important. And I think fundamentally, if you break it down, I know that this is going to make a lot of you very angry. And I get that. And I don't want to make light of this situation because it's a serious one. And I think a lot of you aren't going to be ready to hear this. But sometimes in life you have to hear bad things, you know? And sometimes in life you have to hear uncomfortable things. And it's how you deal with those things, I think, that helps you grow and helps you become a better human being in general. So you should hit the like button is what I'm trying to say to you. I think if you hit the like button, you're going to feel better as a result of that. And I'm going to feel much better as a result of that. And then if you want to support the channel a little bit more, you can go over to Patreon and you can give me $1 there or just hit the fucking like button. That's all I'm asking for. Like, just hit the like button. That way, I don't have to come find you at your house and kick your balls in. Just saying, that could happen. It could happen. You never know, right? I may actually get to a point where I've had enough, and then I may come find you. So, how you guys doing? Welcome back. Thank you so much for being with me. And, yeah, if you thought that it was actually going to be serious, it's not that serious. It's just a bet. It's just a bet. I'm just joking. Just joking. Okay? I'm just joking. I'm not coming to your house, Niora. You're French. I don't want to be anywhere near the French. You guys are weird. You eat frogs. I'm not going there. And some interest to the hug. Digit, how you doing, bro? All right. So, how have you guys been? Have you played any... I feel like I've asked a lot of times how you guys have been. Wow. Let's just pretend like I don't give a shit, and then you just stop telling me how you've been, because a lot of you have now written that you're pretty well a few times. So we'll just go with that, all right? Have you guys been playing Mist of Pandaria Remix? How's the feels? Because I have been enjoying Mist of Pandaria Remix, I think way more than what it has any right to be enjoyed as. I don't know why, but I can't stop playing it. And it's not like I know life it anymore. I'm sort of at the point now where I log in, I do a couple of LFR bosses, I do a couple of dungeons, and then I log right back out, and it just feels so fun to know that every single time I do something, I feel like I'm progressing a little bit because of how the bronze works. So I never feel like I've actually wasted time in anything. It always just feels really good. I genuinely think that this is just, it has to be a blueprint for something in the future. I absolutely fundamentally believe Blizzard needs to do something about this. We need something like this more permanently in World of Warcraft. Or am I alone on this? So most of you going, nah, bro, it sucks. We don't like it at all. Leveling third alt through Mop Remix. Nice, Digit. So wait, I don't have to click anything and I get CBT. Yeah. 100%. I mean, I'm all about the cock and ball torture, bro. Like 100%, you know? If you don't hit the like button, if you do hit the like button, I'll still kick you in the nuts. Just for the fun of it. I just wonder what anyone who didn't see the bit coming into the stream right now, hearing that as their first thing, going, what the is this? What is this filth? I'm not going to be a part of this. Let me go do something else. It will be good to rotate all X packs through similar events to get all the rewards quickly. I agree with you, RZ, 100%. I think it could be a permanent seasonal thing, if that makes any sense. It should be, right? It should make sense. Permanent seasonal thing. So there's always a remix going, but it's not always the same remix. So you have maybe for 99 days, you have Mop Remix. And then right after that, you have Legion Remix. And then right after that, you have Cataclysm Remix, and so on and so forth, right? So it's just consistently rotating from one expansion to the next. And I think what that does is it offers even more chances for major powers to come in, maybe major reworks on classes and stuff of that nature. I think you could do so much, and you could have so much fun, because clearly balancing isn't a thing that Blizzard cares about at all in this remix thing. So you could just go nuts, right, and do whatever you want. So I think that could be really, really awesome. It is a great idea for a filler for new expansion content to catch up some rewards that you could not get in the past, or recolors or such. I would say not just that, Aston. I would also argue this is a phenomenal way for people to learn the lore. You know, because there's a lot of people, I'm assuming, that is going back and playing Mist of Pandaria for the very first time. And if they care to, read the quests, see the story, see what actually happened during the days of Mist of Pandaria without the, you know, having to grind out all of the different reputations, having to gear yourself for raids, because you can pretty much do raids from level fucking 20, so it doesn't really matter. Right? Fundamentally, you get the opportunity to see the old expansion in a way that is almost like classic adjacent. So it's not classic, but it kind of serves the same purpose for maybe people who don't like classic. So they don't want to go back and play the old Mist of Pandaria, but they still get the opportunity to see the old stuff. In fact, one of the first topics we're going to be discussing tonight is something that I have never noticed in Mist of Pandaria, and I funnily noticed it last night for the very first time, because I don't know why. I was busy watching Dropout's podcast, and then just doing finishing off the Manted Cluxy quests, and suddenly there's this conversation that happens. This one dude is just talking to me. One of the Manted is talking to me, and I notice one word in what this Mantis is saying, and I'm like, ooh. Wait, no, that's rather big, no? That does actually mean something. Surely it must. So yeah, it is a wonderful way of re-experiencing the lore, getting acquainted to the lore, and catching people up. I think so. Overall, it is a win. No, this is called Barrens Chat, but I haven't seen anyone post Thunder Fury Blessed Blade of the Windseeker yet. Well, there you go. You just posted that. That makes you a liar. You are a liar, sir. How does it feel being a liar? My first character in Remix, I went through the storyline for every zone, and the flow of the story was actually really good. I think fundamentally, Morny, how you doing, bro? I think fundamentally, we spoke about this a little bit last week, but you're absolutely right. I think Mist of Pandaria should serve as a massive learning experience for Blizzard in terms of structuring expansions, and how expansion structure can make such a phenomenal difference in how it plays. I felt like just going through Mist of Pandaria again, it felt like there's nothing negative to say about the leveling experience. It just fits the flow, the pacing of it, the comedy, the comedic moments of it. It's equal parts ridiculous and also very serious. It's just phenomenal. You know, you have the Storm Stout quest lines that offer a bit of comedic relief, and then you have very serious, very dark quest lines that also fill in at the same time. And what it does is it creates this incredible balance of storyline where instead of just getting darkness in sort of the way that Battle for Azeroth tried to do, or even Shadowlands probably tried to do that even more. So Shadowlands was all about the darkness. And I feel like, especially in World of Warcraft, since comedy or like the sense of humor of World of Warcraft have always been very unique, it's required. If you're gonna deal with very dark storylines, a nice bit of comedy just thrown in there, just a little bit, it really makes a huge difference as far as I'm concerned. For me, it was a bit too long. Should have been 3 hours shorter. What's that, Holy? MoP is the start of the fourth war. It actually feels great to have the faction war stuff again. The old faction war. True. 100%. Question. What do you think if remixes had the SOD treatment on expanding on old photo style of presenting additional lore? Yeah, I would like that. But I think at the same time, I don't think you should get too many versions of World of Warcraft sort of have to be playable in order to experience all of the story. I think already with Season of Discovery, one of my key problems with the new lore being established in Season of Discovery is that now, as a player that cares about the lore, but maybe I don't care about the classic experience at all, I'm sort of forced to play classic just so that I can get that lore. And I don't particularly like that. Although right now, Season of Discovery have been very light on those things. But if it gets a little bit more, you're going to see a lot of people complain about that. Instead, if it was up to me, I would instead use the old expansions, the remixes, and the Season of Discoveries and stuff to update the old lore so that it fits the new lore, if that makes sense. We obviously have a bunch of lore that has basically retconned a lot of the old lore. Well, then use these remix experiences as well as the Season of Discovery experience to update the old lore. So that now we don't have that massive sort of break, I guess you could say, in the lore. And it maybe it gives a lot of really interesting explanations for how things could actually work out. What was the new lore Season of Discovery brought? It brought a bunch of Xal'atath lore and a bunch of like old god stuff that was never known back in the day. And it sort of makes it seem like that is actually what happened. We just never saw it in the old game. I would play Season of Discovery if it didn't look like 2004. Aston, but one of the reasons why a lot of people play Season of Discovery is because it looks like 2004. And the graphics do hold up. Do you find yourself seeing people attribute most of Garrosh's atrocities to himself rather than the influence of the Shah of Pride? People give Arthas a pass, but not Garrosh, from what I've seen. Okay, so I would definitely... So the problem with the Shah argument is that the Shah can only take hold of you if you already suffer from those traits, right? Now, the problem I think Arthas really suffers from and why Arthas gets this free pass from people, and it's not that Arthas shouldn't get a free pass, it's that Garrosh should also probably enjoy one. But I think one of the reasons is most of the player base that knows anything about Arthas only knows about Arthas because of Wrath of the Lich King. They never played through Warcraft 1, 2, or 3. They never read any of the game manuals for Warcraft, specifically 3, and they've never checked the books, the Arthas book or any of the old lore. So they don't know why Arthas... I think most people think of Arthas as almost like this innocent victim in everything that happened. And that's absolutely not what Arthas is. He's not an innocent victim. Arthas is your quintessential tragic hero character. It's a hero that's tortured. It's a hero that has a lot of character flaws. And the character flaws is what leads directly to his downfall. Arthas' arrogance, for example, is a big reason for why Arthas ultimately succumbs to the allure of power that the realms of death offer him. So, but I think it's because a lot of people don't know it, right? For a lot of people, that lore doesn't mean anything. Whereas when it comes to Garrosh, you saw his entire journey to the fall. and to him accepting the Shah and the old god power. And I think also the other problem specifically with Garrosh, and why a lot of people are sort of standoffish about forgiving Garrosh, is Arthas's problems were never race related, right? It wasn't like Arthas was trying to destroy everything that wasn't human. Arthas was trying to destroy all life equally, whereas Garrosh was like 100% just absolute orc first, orc last, nothing else. So clearly for people, it's sort of like bog standard evil guy mentality. And then when you see Garrosh again in the Shadowlands, he doesn't apologize for anything. You know, he's just like, I don't give a shit. I will do it all again. Fuck you all. Gung-ho, let's go again. So Garrosh clearly didn't learn from his original mistakes. And so I think that's why a lot of people refuse to give him a pass. But also, he's a lot of people's favorite character, or at least among their favorite characters. For me, Garrosh is definitely in my top 5 because of his character, because of how he was written and how his downfall was written. So yeah, I think two very different stories, but the same throughput. But then you do just have the problem with most people don't really know. Garrosh chose his path willingly. I think it's hard to argue that he Harmony Hall. I would not disagree with that. I do still like, because I'm with Garrosh there. I think orcs and orcs alone. I think we should kill all of the other races. I have no problem with this. So, in that regard, me and Garrosh is definitely more aligned than we disagree. I think I do disagree with how he went about it. I think he was a little bit stupid, but other than that, I can get behind most of his plans. That being said, though, I wouldn't say that it was because the problem with self-infliction is we don't really know when the whispers for Garrosh started. Like, when did the Void start to whisper to Garrosh? And we already know that the whispers of the Void are incredibly deceptive and very, very difficult to block out, even by people who have the training for it. Garrosh never had the training for it. Not only was Garrosh not a mage or a warlock that at least had some training in mental fortitude, Garrosh was a warrior. And I hate to say this to the warrior players, but lore-wise, warriors are dumb as rocks. They can swing an axe very, very hard, but they're not mentally trained. Mages and warlocks train mentally in order to become powerful. For warlocks, it's all about learning how to block out the power of the Twisting Nether and not succumb to the power of the Twisting Nether, whereas warriors just bang, bang, hit you as hard as I can, and let's hope you die, So obviously Garrosh did have a bit of a downside there. But I don't know really how. I don't know if you could change that, if I'm honest. I would guess canonically it started the second he set foot on Pandaria. I think the second he set foot on Pandaria, you could probably make the argument that that's when the Shah started to infiltrate him. But I'm not sure, the Void's whispers are so seductive and so secretive that it could have happened way before that already. That the Void started to influence him and slowly but surely poison his mind. That it was the Void that dragged him to Mist of Pandaria in the first place. You could easily make that argument. Because Mist of Pandaria was just rediscovered. The Void obviously wanted what was on on Pandaria, and so they have this perfect pots that they can now use to go do some mad shit. Willing or not, it doesn't matter for the opposing boys, like for Sylvanas stuff, her not being killed or punished, but Garrosh and Arthas being disenchanted felt cheap as fuck. Well, you guys know my feelings about the whole Sylvanas scenario. I'm going to be honest, and I've said this before, I am a huge Sylvanas stan. But I'm a stan for Sylvanas because of how she used to be written. I think Sylvanas was one of the best written characters in World of Warcraft. Her story was incredibly tragic, but in being so tragic, it was also incredibly heroic. Everything that Sylvanas went through to come out the other end and actually be almost stronger than what she was before. That's a phenomenal story. That's a hero arc that most people can get behind. And I think most people also like. And she was also kick-ass even before she died. Now, my feelings on Sylvanas, everything said and all that being out in the open, I still believe that Sylvanas should not have been saved. I think it felt like a bit of panic writing with Sylvanas, and if I am correct, and the story for Shadowlands was in fact changed quite frantically in order to tell a new story, then I would say that once Alex Afrasiabi was out and Steve Denuser was now the main dude writing the expansion, he decided sort of lacklusterly, I want to save Sylvanas. I'm not ready to kill her yet. And so that's why we got that really unbelievable twist. I said it at the time and I'll say it again. The problem isn't redemption arcs. There's plenty of stories and universes out there that have redemption arcs coming out the asshole, you know? It looks like a porn scene after a night of heavy orgy shooting. But the issue normally with redemption arcs is if they're unbelievable. And I felt like the Sylvanas redemption arc was a perfect example of an unbelievable redemption arc. Because it didn't make sense. It turned Sylvanas into a blabbering idiot, which is the last thing you want if you want to redeem a character. You know, you want that character to look like a hero that was either outplayed, so they knew from the start who they were dealing with, but they thought that they were smart enough to outplay this character and then lost to that outplay, or it has to be something far more egregious than that. But I do think that there is an argument to be made that Sylvanas should probably just have died in the Shadowlands, given where the story was and what the story was about. I'm glad she didn't die, of course, but I'm not a fan of how she was redeemed. Here is this MacGuffin to change your mind. Well, think about how Sylvanas came to it, right? She stands there in front of Zuval. He has said multiple times that he wants to control everyone and he wants to remove all freedom and freedom of thought. And then he goes, after how many times of saying it, he says it again. Only this time Sylvanas goes, I will never serve. And it's like, what are you talking about? Like, this has been, like, this is not news. It's not like this is the first time he has said this, you know? He has said this multiple times before. Anduin and you have had these conversations before, where you clearly clocked that what Anduin is saying is true. And yet now you have this sort of line that goes, I will never serve, and then you shoot him with an arrow that doesn't even hit. It feels cheap. You know, it feels like a very cheap tactic. And I think players, generally speaking, don't like cheap tactics like that because they feel cheated. They tried to do the Darth Vader redemption and it failed so bad. True. Shadowlands writing was all over the place. The zones were pretty at least. Yeah, I think Shadowlands writing, like, this is why I said Shadowlands looks like the kind of expansion that was changed multiple times in order to fit multiple people's direction for what they thought the story was. Sylvanas and Arthas should have had a great reunion cinematic and retired somewhere in the Shadowlands. Well, let's see what Sylvanas does when she comes back. I wish they would have left Sylvanas like the old Dark Lady, as in the side character, silent and doing what she was always doing. If we want to defeat the Void and the Light and other forces, we need to stop seeing things as life or death. Death is another army that can fight for Azeroth. Fighting for Azeroth, as in helping Azeroth, or fighting for Azeroth, as in who gets full control over Azeroth? Epic Thule. Because I'm going to be honest with you, man. The way everything is shaping up in the War Within, I genuinely think that there's some wild stuff going on. Some very wild stuff. So let's get into the first topic, shall we? So we have some new data mined spoilers over on Wowhead, the website that keeps spoiling. So if you don't want to be spoiled, and you don't want the story spoiled for you, now would be a great time to put your fingers in your ears like this, and you go, la, 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 la. You just wait, and I will give you the thumbs up when I'm done spoiling the story for you. Okay? Let's go. So we have brand new insights into what exactly happens with Dalaran and what happens with Khadgar. So and I don't know why Blizzard would even do this, but if you go to the map and the quest log, they've actually included the Visions of Azeroth campaign dialogue or the actual events, a synopsis of the events. It's already included. So even though you can't technically play that quest line, you can already see what the quest line is. So I'm not entirely sure, like, why do this? If you don't want people to know, why do you include this? Just include the whole bloody quest line then, let people just see it. But anyways, so here's what actually happens there. Magni tried to commune with Azeroth to learn what the Radiant Song was warning us about, and he fell unconscious during the process. Hopefully he can recover with the aid of the Dalaran Archmages. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let's get into this. The Radiant Song. The Radiant Song, of course, comes from Kaz Algar, the giant crystal that is stuck inside the roof. Now, they believe, actually, that the Radiant Song comes from Azeroth, but we now have more information. We are told by the Arathians inside or at Kaz Algar that the Radiant Song actually comes from their Emperor, who heard this the first time, and their Emperor claims that it is Kaz Algar that is sending these Radiant Visions. So their Emperor does not believe that it is Azeroth sending the visions, but rather this Kaz Algar, which, according to the visions, or according to this dialogue at least, isn't actually a crystal of light, but is actually a Titan installation from legend. So this is a thing that the Titans installed on Azeroth for some rhyme or reason, some purpose. So Dalaran then rushes to try and defend this new Kaz Algar crystal thing, and on their way there, Archmage Drayden is revealed to actually be Xal'atath in disguise. She then attacks Dalaran with an army of the Nerubians at her command. Now, I want to talk about a couple of things here. Firstly, this Kaz Algar crystal now being confirmed by Blizzard themselves to be an actual Titan installation, kind of weird. Kind of weird, right? Because why did the Titans build this thing that looks so much like a light crystal? And it shines with light as well. This suggests that there's some wild stuff going on around Kaz Algar, and maybe there's even more to this idea of Xal'atath searching this crystal than we previously thought. Because I thought Xal'atath wanted this crystal to absorb whatever power turned the crystal shadow for the first time. Because remember, the crystal was all light, just shining light the whole time. It was never night inside the cavern. Everyone was awake the whole time. There was no sleeping. Because 24 hours a day, the light in the crystal shines. So then suddenly Sargeras comes and he says, right, night, night. And he punches Azeroth with his sword. He wasn't trying to hurt her. He just wanted to give her a love punch, but the sword went a little deep. Then suddenly the crystal goes, fuck! And the crystal starts going purple. That's nice. Nighttime. It's like a nightlight. So now all of a sudden everyone in the cavern can sleep a little because the crystal goes purple. And then the crystal goes light. And it sort of makes like an actual night-day cycle. Everyone should actually be thanking Sargeras for this. He did do a public service, but as you know, public servants never get the love that they require. And so Sargeras is thrown into prison for his work of actually giving the people that live under Azeroth some night and day cycles. But instead, the crystal is now shining void and light at the same time. Xal'atath goes, fuck it. I liked it when it was just all light and shit. I'm going to go get that. But what if there's more to that story? What if that's not the only reason? Because if this is in fact a Titan installation, what do we know of the Titan installations on Azeroth? There are two types of Titan installations on Azeroth. There are the Forges, and then there are the prisons. Those are the two things that the Titans build on Azeroth. Forges, and we don't know what those forges do, but they do stuff, apparently. And we have prisons. So that becomes a giant question. What if there is something imprisoned within that Titan installation, and the Sword of Sargeras isn't the thing that turned the crystal purple, but it is actually the thing that awakened the creature within that crystal. So Sargeras' sword literally awakened whatever lies hidden within that crystal. And that is what Xal'atath is after. So she's not actually taking the Dark Heart to try and absorb the power from the crystal, but rather take the Dark Heart to try and open the crystal. Right? So that at least is my theory at the moment. Now, let's talk about these radiant fucking visions. The radiant song that everyone seems to claim is from Azeroth. Ooh, Azeroth is speaking to everyone. Magni, when he finally tries to speak to Azeroth and gets a radiant song, what happens to Magni? He passes out. He goes, whew, and he just falls on his back and he goes sleepy bye-bye. Why? Magni has spoken to Azeroth many times before. Azeroth has never knocked him on his ass while he spoke to her. Unless Magni has never spoken to Azeroth. Magni has spoken to the Void. And now Magni is getting visions from whatever creature lies within this new crystal. And this creature is a hell of a lot more powerful than an old god. A Void Lord, perhaps. If you are used to speaking to an old god, in other words, you have a phenomenal connection to an old god, it means that Void Lord is going to be able to speak to you in a much stronger connection than what it will speak to any of the other people. All of the other people are getting fragments, bits and pieces of a vision that sort of drags them towards the sword and drags them towards this Khazalgar. But you, the one who has already had a connection with the Void, you're going to get smacked with it dead to rights. That Void Lord is going to be able to speak to you in full force. Magni, of course, still believes that it must be Azeroth that is speaking to him because, why not? Or perhaps when Magni finally awakens, Magni will be the one that says, that's not Azeroth, champion. That's not Azeroth. We have fucking problems here. Someone else was speaking to me and it was not Azeroth. So clearly, I don't know. To me, there's just something awkward about this Radiant Song thing. And it all goes back to one fundamental problem. This exact same Radiant Song was also heard and seen on the ethereal homeworld, Garrosh. Garrosh has never been confirmed to have had a Titan. The Ethereals have never even mentioned that a Titan was housed within their planet. The Ethereals never even mentioned the Radiant Song until Locust Walker brings it up. They heard the exact same Radiant Song, and the Radiant Song started when the Herald of the Void became active on their planet. That's when the Radiant Song started. So Locust Walker now warns us, you have to be careful. They're coming, This is what happens when the Herald becomes active. I mean, even if you were to make the argument, well, Akko, remember, the Ethereals don't like talking about their planet very much, so it is possible that they know that there has always been a Titan on their planet, but maybe, I will say, why would two separate and different Titans speak in exactly the same way? Why? Oh, and Holy, you are not wrong, my friend. I believe Locust Walker is lying. I don't think he's lying about the Radiant Song. I think Locust Walker is on Azeroth, and he is part of Xal'atath and her army. I mean, we went through this last week. I believe that Locust Walker is 100% not to be trusted. He has already become a servant of the Void. This is why he's continuously pushing Illyria to go deeper and go deeper. because he wants Illyria for himself as well. Giving half-truths? I don't even know if it's necessarily considered half-truths. I think Locust Walker, he seems way too interested in how things operate and work for me to trust him. And I don't think you can trust anyone who serves the Void, even if they claim that they're not serving the Void, they're just using the Void. The Void is not a power that you should screw with. It's not a power that you should lightly engage with. Because we've seen what even the most wise characters on Azeroth, Nalfarian, for example, couldn't even withstand the whispers of the Void. How are you telling me that an ethereal and an elf is better at withstanding the whispers of the Void than a dragon? Make that make sense. I think Locust Walker is the king of the ethereals that fought off Dementius. That's an interesting argument, actually. Was also blessed by Titans. Yeah, he had the blessings of the Titans. He had the strength of Azeroth behind him, and he could not withstand the whispers of the Void. They drove him to insanity. Locust said his people had a similar vision, not the Radiant Song. I saw this as his people seeing a Void song that was similar to the Radiant Song. If she said the Radiant Song, because she did say the Radiant Song, and he said my people had a similar vision, he would have absolutely remarked, oh, we saw a Void vision. Ours wasn't radiant. It was actually dark as fuck. In fact, it felt like we just had our eyes closed. Right? We didn't see anything. That's how dark it was. He would obviously have remarked if it was different to a Radiant song. If I told you, dude, I just heard the best metal song I've ever heard in my life, and you just listened to Justin Bieber, you're not going to go, yeah, I listened to exactly the same music. Right? Obviously you didn't. You're going to be like, yeah, I just heard the bass song too. It was Justin Bieber, and then I'll slap you. But that's beside the point now. The point is, if it was different, he would have mentioned that it is different. He didn't mention anything. Would be pretty funny if Locust Walker was a Boy King in Koresh. I still believe the Boy King is Anduin. I absolutely believe that it is Anduin. He was the Harbinger of the Void on his planet and now feels guilty or something. I don't think he feels guilty. If he was the Harbinger of the Void, he doesn't feel guilty. He's just doing it again. So there might be a Void Lord that is capable to manifest between the light and the void, basically yin-yang, or are two beings trapped with each other? I don't know if two beings would be trapped inside a singular prison. It would be pretty unique as a circumstance, but remember, if the Naru is anything to go by, then creatures of the light can absolutely fall to the void. And they can become void infused, so that is definitely possible. Bleach will find how you know, bro. Hides his identity from Xalatath and the void dementias, probably because he is the one that thwarted their entry to Koresh. Yeah, but he didn't thwart their entry into Koresh. No one thwarted their entry into Koresh. I mean, the Void Lord Dementius eventually consumed the whole of Koresh, at least from what we know. But question then is, what arcane powers did along with Void and Koresh? Ethereal stopped the Void, but not Arcane, and Arcane is the power of order, and therefore the Titans know? Well, remember, the Ethereals figured out how Arcane works. But Arcane, unlike Light and unlike Void, doesn't require anything in order to be channeled. Arcane is considered to be the magic of the universe. In other words, close your eyes and think about the great beyond, and then see on a different dimension just these lines and lines of arcane magic flowing through it. Arcane is considered to be the magic that created the universe. Okay? Foul is its opposite entry. So foul, in my mind, is arcane that becomes unstable, becomes foul. Far more powerful, but far less stable. And so it's this natural sort of, yin-yang scenario. So you can absolutely live on a planet, not have any Titan anywhere near you, and still be able to channel arcane. Because the arcane doesn't require a close source. The arcane is everywhere. You even see it with druids. a lot of druidic spells are actually arcane-based spells, because arcane flows through nature. Yeah? So I would argue that, yeah, you don't need a titan on your planet in order to do arcane or have arcane magic. Light checks death, void checks light. Seems legit. Hey, Echo, Blood Fiction, how you doing? I got it. Kind of felt that arcane is the power of order, as in ordering the energies into power that creates or destroys. I don't know. I know that Titans claim that arcane is the power of order, and we know that the Chronicles suggest that based on their map of the cosmos. But then when you look at the actual Titans, very few of them actually use arcane. They use all sorts of other magics, but not really all that much arcane, you know? Some of them have earthly powers. I don't know. It just, you know, some of them have light powers. It's sort of weird. I don't know. The Titans make no sense. There's a lot that we need to unpack about the Titans, because they genuinely don't make sense. There's just some weird crap going on with them. Why do I feel Medivh will come out of nowhere soon? Slash, I would not be surprised. I think Medivh has been on the back burner for a very long time, and there must be a reason why. Because remember, Medivh was basically brought back under the watchful guise of Chris Mayton. Chris Mayton was still with Blizzard when Medivh was confirmed to be locked inside Karazhan, his soul basically being tethered to Karazhan. So why would he do that? He would only do that if he did have a plan to eventually bring Medivh back in some way, shape, or form. The old Illidan book, where it explains how he sees magic and its flows, and there's an order to it, which is why he is so good. Good at it always suggested to me that arcane was also ordered at its nature. Yeah, but no one ever said that arcane isn't ordered at its nature. There is a massive difference between a magic being ordered as its nature and a magic coming from order. Because if I am correct, then arcane predates the creation of the cosmological forces by several thousand years. Remember, my theories come from a unified theory that the first ones and the cosmological forces were not the original things of Azeroth. There was something in the great beyond long before any of the cosmological forces became a thing. So it is entirely possible for the Realms of Order to be entirely built on top of Arcane, because Arcane is a far more ordered version of Fel, but not have Arcane be coming from the Realms of Order. And I think there is a difference between those. The same way that death doesn't actually come, or death magic doesn't actually come from the Realms of Death. The Realms of Death were built on top of death magic, or necromancy, whichever way you want to put it. Medivh will tie this 3 expansions into one thing, as in WoW 2. I don't think we'll ever get a WoW 2, honestly. I don't think it's arcane that predates. Pure energies are what predate creation. Then there was light and void that clashed and caused the... So Aston, all you're giving me is the Chronicles and the Chronicle explanation that was written by the Titans, who were not there at the start. The Titan explanation is an explanation that comes from one of 2 places. Either they used actual science, and how does science work? Well, a lot of our scientific discoveries come from inferences. So we don't know whether or not there was a Big Bang. We can't see it. We have no evidence for it. But we have evidence based on inference. So what we do is we say, right, what does the galaxy look like right now? What would explain the galaxy looking the way that it looks, right? And then we go, okay, either it was a flower that just bloomed. Well, clearly, if it was a flower that just bloomed, we would expect to see nectar and we would expect to see leaves everywhere. We're not seeing that, so that's definitely not it. Well, what if it was a giant fart? Well, we're also not really seeing that. Okay, but it kind of looks like there was an explosion. Then we go, okay, let's imagine that there was an explosion. What would we expect to see if there is such an explosion? And then we look, and then we see, and we go, okay, based on the inferences made, and based on the findings thereof, we think that a Big Bang explains the origins of our galaxy the best. Okay, so the Titans could have done that. So they looked at what they saw and they said, right, what explains this better than anything else? Or they found the writings of the first ones. So the first ones explained to them how they claim to have created the whole universe. Since we have no argument there, we have to take what the Titans said with a grain of salt, because we don't actually know how the Titans derived their information. We already know that the Titans are wrong about quite a few things in the Chronicles. And Blizzard sort of accounted for that by saying that this is written from the perspective of the Titans, not, it's not the word of God. So, yeah, I would argue that take everything you read in the Chronicles and everything from the Titans with a massive grain of salt, the same way you would from any of the other cosmological forces. Because no one of them are actually telling us the truth. They're giving us enough so that we trust them. That's about it. Amonthol, who would be Sheldon? I have no idea. Sounds like I have some questions to ask Luneth. If the Titans didn't create Arcane, I'm curious to know who did. Well, I don't think the Titans have ever created anything. And this again goes back to the Titans' own illegitimate explanation for what creation actually is. Remember, in the Titan language, there is no differentiation between ordering something and creating something. As far as they're concerned, to create something something cannot exist and be created unless it has been ordered. That is why they dispute the idea that anything existed on Azeroth before they arrived, even though we know for a fact that there were many things that existed long before the Titans even arrived on Azeroth. The Mantid and the Kluxi speak of this. This is one of the theories that I wanted to share with you guys. They speak about a world that existed long before the Titans even arrived on Azeroth. The Nerubians speak of a world that existed long before the Titans arrived on Azeroth. Neltharion knows that something existed long before the Titans arrived on Azeroth. So under the old gods, things were already created on Azeroth. Things were already existing on Azeroth. The Titans then arrive, view these things, view them as unordered in their own minds, and then claim to have created everything. But when you really think about it, and you start to sort of follow the theory, it, to me at least, points to the Titans have never created anything. Everything that you see that the Titans claim is actually just a perversion of what existed before. So if we really jump into this theory, I do have a video on this on the channel, but this was a few months ago, so I'm assuming a lot of people that watch me now didn't even see that video then. But there's a video on the channel where I talk about this in a lot more detail. But I don't even think the Titans created their constructs from scratch. I think their constructs were once flesh. The Titans arrived, turned these constructs into stone so that they could mind control them and force them to serve, and then the old gods re-gifted them the curse of flesh, turning them back into flesh. And this immediately gave them free will, and they immediately fucked off. They didn't want to stay. This is how I know for a fact, or this is where my theory comes from. If the constructs were actually built by the Titans from day one, then the gift of flesh would not have caused the fleshlings to run away from the Titans. Why would they? Why would you run away from your creator just because you were made flesh? It makes no sense. Unless, of course, you weren't created by the Titans, you were enslaved by the Titans, and once you got your free will back, you decided, peace out, boys, and you effed off, right? Because the opposite doesn't make sense. It just logically doesn't offer an explanation for what happened there. So yeah, I would argue that the Titans have never created anything. everything that you see from the Titans is some form of corruption of, and I mean corruption in terms of some ordering of something that had already existed. Or was that after they showed up and left the game? What do you mean, TJ? Granted the mortals freedom, right? Yes. The second the Curse of Flesh happened, they were free to make a choice. But remember, if I was made to serve you, why would flesh version of me suddenly decide I don't wish to serve you? More importantly, where do souls come from? So we can really layer this down. Where do souls come from? First, what are souls? It's anima, right? It's a collection of anima that grows and grows and grows. Where does anima come from? Yeah, the Mechanomes were busy doing that. It comes from Azeroth. I believe that Azeroth is the being that creates souls. It's the one that creates anima and infuses that into creatures of flesh. So now we have to ask ourselves the question, if the constructs of the Titans were created by the Titans, and the Titans clearly don't have the ability to create anima, otherwise why would they need the Shadowlands to recycle this anima so that they don't lose it? If they could just create it themselves, then clearly we have a much bigger problem. Because once they receive the gift of flesh, now suddenly they all have souls. But the soul had to come from somewhere. It had to be created by something, right? And if it was created by Azeroth, Azeroth would not infuse them just immediately with souls because now they're flesh. Unless, of course, they had a soul from the beginning and then was turned into a stone construct to serve the Titans, and their souls were basically the fuel that kept these constructs going, and then once they received the gift of flesh, they screwed off. Oh, they ran off again. You know, so that would be my explanation for it, at least. What if each Xerath has its own version or name for anima? It's possible, but I feel like from a storytelling perspective, we're kind of zooming out from the lore here, and we're just talking about the storytelling aspect of it. If you're telling a story, having too many names for the same thing can become very, very confusing very quickly. So it's one thing if each of them have their own language, and in their language, it means something different, or it sounds like something different, but it's still referred to as anima. But if there's a different word for all of it, then it becomes difficult, because now you have to explain that and the player has to remember that. So I don't know, but it is possible, right? But it is interesting that they don't have their own languages. They all speak the same language except for the first ones, who don't speak a language but instead sing musical notes or some shit. Does anima create the soul, or is anima a byproduct of ordering a soul? My initial thought, Apocalypse, would be that anima is the soul, and the soul is anima. It's a thing that it is both at the same time. So it as a byproduct, we already know that souls can create more anima. The more powerful you were in life, the more anima you have in the afterlife. This is already confirmed thanks to the Shadowlands. So clearly the anima isn't static. It's not like your soul is created and then that's the soul you have. Your soul is created, and then the more you do things, the more powerful your soul becomes, and then they can harvest more of that in the afterlife. But I think it is sort of like a thing of the well consists of anima, or is created out of anima, and then it also creates more anima as you do things in life. Don't want to derail the lore discussion, but I watched your story mode raid video, and I have quite a few thoughts on how it could work as a system and how it could... well, actually, you can derail the conversation. I don't really care. How you doing, by the way? But I have some more news on this. And this is actually sad. This is not the sad, like, you guys should hit the like button sad. This is the sad of, like, this is actually sad. So we have a little bit more information now from Ian. They sent out a blue post after. So how many of you don't know what I'm talking about when I say the story mode raids? How many of you have no idea what I'm talking about? Death Realm, you have to stop thinking about each of these realms as separate realms, and instead think of these realms as connected. The Death Realm is connected to the Titans, is connected to Order, and is most likely connected in some weird way to life, or life has been enslaved by those realms. So the realms of death serve as a way to not let a drop of anima go to waste, and also ensure that none of the anima goes to any of the other forces. That's how I would say it. Yeah, wings of the same raid, almost. Yeah, they all work together to sort of create an enclosed system. Okay, so the story mode was announced. Well, it wasn't even really announced. It was the video that I covered was the day before Ian came out with his blue post. Where all we had was, and I think I said this in the video as well, it was data mined that there is a new story mode raid coming. Or a story mode difficulty for the raids coming. We knew that it was 1 to 5 players, and it's gonna do something. We didn't know what the gear was, what the gameplay was. I even said in the video, I have no idea what the gameplay is for this, because we don't know. We just have this information about a story mode. Ian then comes out with a blue post the day after, and they say that actually the story mode is only for the final boss of the raid, which already kind of peeved me a little. Because I was like, dude, this is such a good idea. And I'm not necessarily suggesting that you should have all the bosses in the story mode, but at least have all the story relevant bosses. In every raid, there's usually like 3 or 4 story relevant bosses, and then there's a number of filler bosses, you know, bosses that take it or leave it, it doesn't really matter. Usually the first boss of a raid can be a boss that doesn't really matter for the story, but it is there so that you do have a boss. You know, at least have the story relevant bosses in the raid be part of the story mode so that people could see the whole story of the raid without just seeing, you know, without having to do it. But then something even worse was announced. Before I go to the even worse announcement, how many of you don't mind the fact that it is just the last boss? Holy, so your sentence means nothing, because this right here is the process of giving feedback. So all you just say to me is, perhaps this is just an experiment. Given feedback, they may change their mind. Well, we're in the process of giving feedback. I need feedback from you guys. How many of you don't? How many of you wish that it was more than just the last boss? That's basically the question. Needs to be all bosses relevant to the story? Yes, just saying. All right, cool. Here's my thoughts on that. Maybe they plan to do something along the lines of the Aberrus quest chain, where you go through with Rathian, Sibelian, and Ebonhorn, and then what if we killed Sarkareth? Well, yeah, obviously that could work, right? If that is something that they wish to do. But I still feel like more bosses in the story mode would probably make more sense. But I get where you're going with that, Harmony, and I kind of like that idea, if that is the way that they're going to go with it. The last boss makes no sense. The cinematic can be seen on YouTube. We need more bosses. I very much do mind the fact that it is just the last boss. I wish it was the whole raid. Wondrous, how you doing, bro? And yeah, they should just give you access to the entire raid. I wish it was more than the last boss, but it is what it is. I don't mind. It's kind of like Final Fantasy XIV, where you face the major boss in a one-on-one fight. I'd like more bosses, but it's better than nothing, I guess. Hate the fact that it's only the last boss, which I can do the raid at my one rhythm, enjoying everything. Lore is used, vast, very rich. All I need is good story. But I very much agree with you there. So, here's my thoughts on it. I wish it was the relevant bosses, right? At least story relevant. So give me 4, maybe even 5 bosses at least. Would I prefer if the story mode was all of the bosses? Yes, I would. And there's a reason for it. As someone that cares deeply about the lore, one of the things that I do while I'm playing the game is if I'm fighting a boss, I'm listening to their voice lines. I'm looking for small changes in magic, for example. What kind of magic are they using? What is the color? Do they say something as they're casting a specific spell? What is the room like? Does the room change color? Is there something that happens maybe in the room while I'm busy fighting you that maybe gives me a clue? Maybe you put a sign somewhere. Maybe there's a little Easter egg somewhere. The problem that I have with LFR, and a lot of people ask, well, what's the difference between this and LFR? In LFR, you don't have the chance to do that. There's a lot of rushing in LFR. People just sprint towards the final boss. And then you get to the final boss, and it is an absolute mess during the final boss trying to kill that thing because you have half the raid AFK, the other half of the raid super toxic. And it's not a good way to absorb the story, you know? If you're doing a normal or a heroic or a mythic raid, oftentimes you don't even need to focus on the story because you're going to do that boss 100 times before you finally kill it. And by the 100th time, you've already heard all of the voice lines so many times that now you know it, right? Which is oftentimes not the case in the LFR once again. So I feel like I don't like how LFR tells the story, and I don't think LFR does a great job of telling the story because of just all the people around you and the pressure that comes with having all of those people expecting things from you and so on and so forth. So I would prefer if I could go into the raid and experience all of those bosses in a solo experience where I don't have to compete with anyone else and I can just do my thing and take my time with it. But it's not actually the worst part of the blue post. And this is what I really hope Blizzard will reverse. The story mode raid will only become available with the last wing of LFR. This means a month after the raid comes out. So it's going to take a whole month before lore players will actually be able to experience the story that is meant to be experienced chronologically. Because that's the whole point. You finish the quest line, then you go in, you kill the boss, and then you see either the next part of the quest line, or then you see... So what happens here is you're still going to be forced to go do the raid. So the story mode is completely useless. Why even have it, right? Why? There's no point in that. If you're going to make people wait a month in order to see the final bits of the story, you may as well just not have the story mode. Because then people may as well just go do the raid because they want to see the rest of the story. I feel like, firstly, I hate the fact that LFR is on the staggered release. If you would permit me to just very quickly... I think LFR should be available day one with all of the other raids. Because the people who do normal, heroic, and mythic don't do LFR. The people who do LFR, generally speaking, most of them don't do normal, heroic, or mythic. Why does it matter when they're allowed to go do LFR? I don't understand. Why not just make everything available day one and let people play the bloody game in the way that they want to play it? It feels more like wanting to stagger it so that people feel like they have more to look forward to and more to do for longer before they get bored again. Which, in my opinion, just please don't do this. Please don't do this. Like we talked about before, make LFR drop Mythic 0 gear. It doesn't need to be its own item level. The Grey fundamentally agree with you, right? We already have a problem with gear inflation being a massive thing. If LFR dropped Mythic 0 gear, no one would be forced to go do LFR. No one, right? So I personally think we should have LFR day one, and I think story mode should also be available day one. How many of you had your expectations for story mode this high, and it dropped when you found out that it's going to take a month before you're able to do story mode final boss? Like, how many of you just heard this and you were like, bro, come on? Because I saw a bunch of people reacting to what I said in the chat. Like, no one's happy about this, right? You crashed as soon as I saw it was just Last Boss? Just heard about all this from you? I may as well just do LFR my day, but it's just stupid. Honestly, I think LFR being staggered is more a logistical choice than holding people back on purpose. Essentially, World First Race is a wider sample playtest for the raid at the end of the day. But Harmony, okay, so how does it influence anything logistically? I'd like to hear an explanation for that. But fuck, disappointing. What's the point of even doing the story mode if it's only the end boss? It completely defeats its entire purpose. Matthew, agree. Now I don't even care about it, and I want hard modes to be activated like in Ulduar, where you have to do something in a fight. It just need to replace LFR. That was a powder cake that pretty much destroyed all optimism I had for story mode. All right, so I think we're all in agreement. It's just not fun. You know, it just removes so much of the hype around what story mode could have been, around what story mode should be, and I really hope that Blizzard can take the feedback on this and remove that nonsense. I get that Blizzard wants to make raiders feel special, but they're already feeling special. They're getting gear. You know, just give us the bloody story mode so that we can play and see the story day one, and stop trying to stagger these releases. World of Warcraft just... there's so many things that is so incredibly staggered in World of Warcraft, and I don't understand why. Why do we have these consistent staggered releases of stuff? Why must stories consistently, have lockout periods where you can't continue with the story until next week or until you've reached 4 new renown levels or whatever? Why not just release everything and let people play through it? Because it makes someone like myself actually go, well, I won't log into the game until 1 month later, so that I can experience all of it. Well, I don't even think that it is subscription-based, Elodie, because, again, if all you're doing is trying to get people to subscribe for as long as possible, then why don't I just wait a month and then subscribe for a month, play everything because now everything is available, and then just cancel my sub again, right? It makes no sense. So you're not really saving or pushing anyone to subscribe. It feels more like the kind of thing that this is just how Blizzard have always done it. And so they just keep doing it, right? And I feel like this is just... it's one of those relics of the old WoW that I think should die with it. Harmony, you joke, but I do actually know quite a few people who play exactly like that. They only wait for the final patch, and once the final patch is fully out, that's when they come back. They play it 1 month subscription, finish everything, and then never play again. So that does happen, actually. The staggering really makes it hard to follow the story sometimes. I think... I don't have a problem with staggering in general. I just need to be clear. I think some of the best staggering I've seen in World of Warcraft was a little bit... it wasn't perfect, and it still didn't want to see it, but it was actually some of the best implementations thereof that I've seen from Blizzard was during Emerald Dream. I think the Emerald Dream's staggered release at least made some logical sense. Like, you could understand why we had to wait for certain things to happen. Some of the worst implementations of staggered releases was in Shadowlands. The time gating there was ridiculous. You would sometimes just wait a week for no reason. Like, there's no reason why you have to wait a week. There's not even a gameplay reason given for why you have to wait a week. You just have to wait a week. So I felt like at least... I don't mind if you're time gating something, but then there needs to be a very good story reason for why we're time gating this. Because I get that sometimes time can make something feel more real. So if, for example, we need to wait a week because our armies need to get ready in order to make this final push on the raid, all right, cool, that makes sense. It sort of helps with the bit of immersion, right? We're getting ready. But then maybe give me a couple of quests in order to make the army stronger, recruit a couple of new people, so play heavily into the fact that we're staggering this release. Instead of just sort of doing it so that you have more content spread out a little bit thinner. I played all Shadowlands, suffered, it was a hot mess. True, Shadowlands almost broke us all. Each step in the time gating has to feel unique and exciting. AA 100% perfectly said. If it doesn't feel believable, it just feels wrong. Ducky, how you doing, bro? ICC was harder and more successful, so I don't know, honestly. I wonder if Illidan got the chance to learn a lot more by now from Sargeras, since Sargeras got banished, so much to unravel of what Sargeras knows. I would not be surprised if Illidan comes back and goes, boys, so I've changed my mind twice already, but I've changed my mind a third time now. I'm now actually on Sargeras' side. So I was kind of on Sargeras' side, then I was actually working against him, but now I'm on his side again. I would not be surprised, because I do think there's something about Sargeras that we're not being told. I don't know what it is, but there's definitely something going on there. Suramar was so good. I'm still hoping we get something akin to Suramar one day. He's unshame. It could be. It's entirely possible. But I want to share something with you guys very quickly, since we're talking about Titans, or we did talk about Titans, and we talked about old gods in early days of WoW. There's something that caught my eye, and maybe I'm late to this party. Maybe everyone has already spoken about this, and I'm just the first person to, or the last person to notice this. But I'm pretty clued into the lore discussions in World of Warcraft, and I have never seen anyone bring this up. And this is specifically from the Mantid in Mist of Pandaria, where Corvin the Prime, he is the first Paragon that you, he was the first Paragon. He was the one that suggested that they start saving their greatest warriors in the Amber, so that when the Klaxi have need of them, you can awaken them and they can lead the charge, so to speak, against whatever was wrong. He talks about the Kapari trees, or the Kapari trees, right? And those are those giant trees that you see. And he speaks about how those trees came up out of Azeroth at some point during the Mantid Empire. So the Mantid Empire, when it was very primitive and very young, these Kapari trees started to sprout up. And within these Kapari trees flowed an amber. The amber they called Kipperite. And in their language, it means the lifeblood of the earth. Kipperite, the lifeblood of the earth. And it says here, it healed our wounds, it made us bold, it tasted like sweetness and fire, and gave us the strength to conquer all the lesser races. So let's quickly establish a couple of things here. We have azerite, that is confirmed to be, well, not confirmed, but is said to have been the lifeblood of Azeroth, right? Then we have the, what's the goblins version of it? They made a cola out of it. Now I can't remember what the cola is called. Chasmite. Thank you. Yes, Chasmite. Now we have Kipperite, which is the Mantid version of it. And we have Serenite, which is confirmed to be the blood of Yogg-Saron. The Mantid Empire was based and built around service to the old gods. They explain how their gods were cruel. They never used the power of their gods because the power of their gods would drive them crazy. But they did serve their gods, which is a very interesting thing. So they have these gods. They are gods. They're very angry and very sort of need to be fucking careful around them. They don't use the power of their gods, but they do serve these gods because they're gods. They would kill them otherwise. Out of the earth comes these trees, Kipari trees, and the amber that flows from it, they name that Kipperite. And it literally means lifeblood of the earth. What is going on? Are we Do we believe, chat, that Kipperite is Azeroth's blood? Or do we think Kipperite is the same as Saronite? Because remember, there's a lot of discussion around Azerite. A lot of us, specifically in the speculation community, do not believe that Azerite is the blood of Azeroth. I have gone on record as saying I don't even believe the Well of Eternity was the lifeblood of Azeroth. I believe the Well of Eternity was something completely different. I don't think the blood of Azeroth has ever been spilled. So this would mean that all of these different ites that we find on Azeroth comes from something else. Now, if we go by naming schemes, then Saronite is the one that sounds the closest to all of the others. And if Saronite is the blood of an old god, then does this mean that Azerite and Khajiit and Kipperite are different types of bloods from different old gods? We know of 4. Right? We know that there are 4 old gods. We think that there may be a 5th. Saronite is the blood of Yogg-Saron. Khajiit may be the blood of N'Zoth. Maybe. Or Azerite could be the blood of N'Zoth, since Azerite was the last and N'Zoth was the only one that was still alive at the time for Azerite to actually show up. Then you have Khajiit, which could either belong to Cthulhu, or it could have belonged to... Now, it should actually just be Cthulhu, because I believe Kipperite to be the blood of Y'Saraj. Order, destroy it, and link it. Created 2 orders, started leaking out. Got nothing to base that on, though. I like the theory, though. If old gods are akin to mosquitoes or ticks, they feed off blood, converted into something of their own. Well, we don't know if they even feed on Azeroth. We have no idea what the old gods actually do. We're told that the old gods corrupt Azeroth, but we've never received any evidence of that. That's never been proven to us. It's just something the Titans told us, right? It has to be Azeroth's blood, given the age of the Mantid Ride. How would they see the blood of their gods and call it the Earth's blood? The old gods fought each other, so the blood would be known? Not necessarily, because the old gods never fought each other personally. The old gods' forces fought each other, but the old gods personally never fought each other. It is important to remember that little detail. The old gods never, like N'Zoth never had like 500 spears in each tentacle and smacked Y'Saraj with these tentacles. They each had forces, and these forces would fight against each other, and the old gods would do the thing that they always do, which is to project their minds and give power to their forces as their forces clashed with one another. But I don't expect to like see a giant cinematic of the 2 old gods fighting each other. Like an actual physical form fight each other. If we assume that Elune is a being of life, do you think she made a pact with the Void? Elune gets Void powers in the form of the Night Warrior, while the Void gets the ability to create the Old Gods. Ryan, thanks for the $5, man. Really appreciate you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You're far too kind, sir. I don't know. There's been... during Legion, I had this giant theory about Elune, and Elune perhaps being... a void creature in some way, shape, or form, or perhaps being linked to the void. It's just outside of the Night Warrior, there's no evidence for it, which drives me fucking nuts, because clearly Elune struck bargains with someone. She must have done, because Xal'atath calls her an upstart goddess, which means Elune has power. But if Elune is just another Eternal One, as the Winter Queen seems to suggest, then she would not have anywhere near enough power to become a god. The Eternal Ones are good and really powerful, but they're not gods. They don't have the power of gods. So if Elune wants to become a goddess and wants to actually be worshipped as a god, then she's gonna need a lot more power. And then perhaps something like a deal with the Void could potentially make sense. And then Ryan, thanks for the $5, man. Makes you wonder why the jailer used the azerite at the end of his fight. It does, actually. But it would explain why all of the things seemingly act the same way. At least we know Kazhamite and Azerite react exactly the same. You know, Gallywix tells Sylvanas this. Back during the Second Sundering, their Kazhamite reacted exactly the same as the Azerite did after the sword struck into Azeroth. So there's a link between Kazhamite and Azerite at the very least, right? And so why would Kazhamite, because Kazhamite was more reddish, I believe. I could be wrong. Yeah, it was more reddish. Azerite obviously have multiple colors, or 2 colors at least, if we exclude gradients. The Kipperite is completely amber orange, and Saronite is like a bluish, greenish kind of color, right? So it would explain, if it is different bloods from different old gods, it would explain the different colors, even though it is blood from different old gods, right? It has the same origin, which is old god. Zero literally confirms it in the same expansion. Teaking confirms what? Barmut, that is actually very true. What did the jailer shoot Azeroth with at the end of the raid? Was it Azerite or Anima? Because he nearly killed her. I think he was blasting her with probably anima-infused attacks. I'm not entirely sure what exactly he was blasting her with, though. Oh, right. Oh, okay. Understand that. I believe that Azerite is a part of domination magic after Shadowlands, anyway. I don't know. Could this explain the whisper from the earth he draws strength? Our earth, our strength. Who used what blood that could link to that in any way, shape, or form? Was that Light's bargain with the jailer then? Kill Azeroth so we can resurrect her with Light. So the Light's bargain, we genuinely don't know. It would all depend on what the Void views as the ultimate enemy. Now, as I said before, death is the safe choice because death is pretty much the ultimate enemy, right? Because once you die, and you go to the Shadowlands, and then the old gods can't reach you. But it might be that the old gods have a different enemy in mind. So we would first have to figure out what is it exactly that the old gods view as enemies. Titan's old gods seem to want just control Azeroth, not kill her. I think so. If I'm going to be very sort of surface level and we're not going to look too deeply into it, my speculation theory at least is that everyone is fighting or vying for control of Azeroth because everyone is trying desperately to get hold of anima. Because anima is already confirmed to be ridiculously powerful. So if you can consume enough anima, you can actually become unstoppable. This is, in my opinion at least, what everyone is after. The Titans, for the last few thousand years, have had complete control over the font of anima, which is Azeroth. It comes from her. And they have completely corrupted the entire system to ensure that the anima remains in a closed loop where none of the other forces can gain access to it. So the anima goes from Azeroth, from the life force or source of life in the universe. If it dies, it goes into the Shadowlands. Some of it gets funneled back into the system. The rest gets hoarded by the Shadowlands and most likely gets provided back to the beings of order. because Oribos is already confirmed in interviews to be a Titan construct. The Titans built Oribos. So this would suggest, at least in part, that the Titans would have a similar building that most likely connects to Oribos inside the Realms of Order. Santiago, how you doing, bro? Would you be able to explain the concept of the first ones in relation to the Titans who came first? Santiago, so do you want my speculation explanation for it, or do you want the actual lore explanation for the first ones? Seeking, why I would say you are still a child of Azeroth is because I believe that all life in the universe comes from Azeroth. Azeroth is literally the creator of life. So even though the orcs were born on Draenor and the Titans claim that they were the ones who made the orcs, they were created by Azeroth. They were given life by Azeroth. The dream that is Azeroth's dream expands the whole of the cosmological universe. And so all life in the universe comes from Azeroth. This makes all mortals in the Great Beyond the children of Azeroth. Now, does Azeroth have her favorite children? I absolutely believe that. And those are specifically the children born on Azeroth. And so Azeroth called her children home, the ones that she needs to protect her. The orcs and the Draenei counted among those. She made it so that they would eventually find their way to her, so that they could serve as her armies, as her protectors, and perhaps as her freers, you know, as the ones that would set her free. Duval was trying to use her against something, I think. Brittle J, well, yeah, 100%, right? As Duval tells us right at the end, a cosmos divided will not survive what is to come. The issue is we have no idea what is to come. Now, in that, at least, Zuval has never changed. Right? He has always maintained this. How do we know this? Because if you go read Arthas, the reason Arthas wanted to turn everyone into undead, into Forsaken effectively, was because Arthas looked at the mortal races, realized that the mortal races are not united enough to stand against the enemies of Azeroth, and so believed that if he kills everyone and turns everyone into undead, they would all be united against a singular force, right? And that would be, that was his goal. That was the goal of Arthas. At this point already, Arthas was controlled by Zuval, so that was the goal of Zuval. Give me yours. Okay, so my theory for the first ones is that the first ones were not the first ones of the universe. In other words, they were not the first ones to have life in our universe. I believe the first ones are predated by beings like Azeroth, beings like Argus, maybe even the Titan that lived on Koresh or in Koresh. These beings of the Great Beyond predate the first ones by several thousands millennia. I believe the first ones are what the brokers refer to as the ones outside the cycle. So if you remember, the brokers see that in the beginning there are two forces. One of these forces then splits into many forces, and perhaps even a seventh one, but the seventh one looks as if it may actually be a fractal of the six. So maybe the seventh force isn't a force that should be viewed as separate from the other forces, but rather as a fractal of the other forces, made whole by the other forces. So this is what the brokers see. And then they talk about the second force, the one that didn't turn into the 6 and the 7, and they say that this force looks like it's on the outside. My estimation is that the first force became Azeroth, and then Azeroth gave birth to a number of Titans, i.e. Argus, and maybe even more, and then maybe even Sargeras. So in my theory, I actually believe that Sargeras may actually have been a planet, but he was lied to by the other Titans, so Aman'Thul told him that he was also born this way, even though he wasn't. right? And so Sargeras doesn't know that there are massive lies going around. This is why Sargeras is the one that betrayed the Pantheon, because he's the only true Titan among the Pantheon. So the rest of the Pantheon Titans are actually from different cosmological forces. So these other beings, the second force, penetrates or infiltrates, this is not a sexual show, so they infiltrate the cosmological universe that we call home, right? And they see chaos. They see 6 different forces all vying for power. They see a bunch of life running around just completely randomly doing crazy shit. And they go, no, this will not do. This needs to be ordered. So they go to every single one of the cosmological forces and they build a zeroth realm in each of these cosmological forces. This zeroth realm serves as a way to order this cosmological universe or this cosmological force. They then, out of these zeroth realms, create servants that preside over the cosmological force. So these servants are the Eternal Ones, they're the Titans, they're whatever is left of the ones in life, whatever is left. And so they now order the universe. They call themselves the First Ones because, like the Titans, who are their children, they don't have a word for creation and order. Their word is the same. They don't believe that the universe existed before they arrived. The universe came into existence when they brought order to this universe. That's why they call themselves the First Ones. But they are actually the enslavers of the universe. They made the universe in their image because they like the idea of it. Now, if I were to extrapolate this a little bit more, we would run into questions like, why do we not see any of these Titans in the Twisting Nether? We know that there is a zeroth realm in the Twisting Nether, but we see none of the Eternal Ones or the Titans inside the Twisting Nether. I would argue the reason we don't see any of those Titans inside the Twisting Nether is because the First Ones did not expect or did not know how to contend with the chaotic nature of specifically the Twisting Nether, life, and void. They did not realize just how impossible it would be to try and order these 3 cosmological forces. That is why when you read the Broker's Grimoire of the Shadowlands, they draw a clear distinction. They name all 6 of the cosmological forces, and then they subcategorize each of the 6 into groups of 3. You have the ordered version of the cosmological forces, which is death, order, and light. And then you have the chaos version of the cosmological forces, which is life, foul, and void. Because the ordered side of the cosmological forces were ordered beautifully by the First Ones. The chaos side of the cosmological forces could not be ordered. The zeroth realm fell to the chaos of the Twisting Nether. Whichever Eternal Ones served in the Twisting Nether were corrupted by the chaos forces within the Twisting Nether and have become part of it, have completely forsaken their duty to the First Ones, which we may or may not see in the future. The Void most likely either destroyed these Eternal Ones, or the Void Lords, as we know them today, are actually these Eternal Ones who fell to the power of the Void and became infused to it. So that would be my explanation for it. Do you consider Azeroth the realm of order? No, I consider Azeroth to be the realm of reality. So if you look at life on Azeroth, it is equal parts chaos, equal parts order. There is some order on Azeroth, but there is also a lot of chaos on Azeroth. Right? So Azeroth truly does scream, at least at the moment, to be a fractal of the 6. She has elements of all 6 of the cosmological forces, but she is in no way, shape, or form controlled by all 6 or by one over the others. Kimmy, how you doing? You have to be corrupted with Fel to go to the Nether, according to the Shadowlands Limbo quest. If you're corrupted with a cosmic force, you belong to them in death. The problem with that is we do know of beings who serve different forces in life and yet still made their way into the Shadowlands. Zara separated them as rhythm and structure, improvision, and possibility. None of them are negative terms. No, it's not about negative. Chaos is a negative. I never said anything about negative or positive. Chaos is a negative. Without chaos, it would be chaos. Do you know how bad life would be without chaos? Like, none of us would want to live in a universe that is completely under order. And I'm not talking about WoW here, I'm talking about real life. You see what happens to societies that try to remove chaos from the society. Soviet Russia, Communist China, Venezuela. Anytime you try to control all of the outcomes, it leads to incredible human suffering. Because you can't control it, and therefore you make it worse, right? So, yeah, I'm not saying positive or negative, I'm just saying I think the first one's completely underestimated just the level of chaos that exists within those realms. I'm going to throw this out there. I love Nexus Theory, which stems from Heroes of the Storm, but the first ones of chaos might actually be the prime evils from the Diablo universe. So, Harmony, that triggers the hell out of me. I am not a fan of the Nexus Theory in any way, shape, or form, and I will fight to the death anyone that tries to convince me otherwise. I cannot stand that theory because there are so many holes in that theory, so many things that you just have to suspend completely in order for that theory to make sense, because when you get to StarCraft, there's a lot of powers that's completely missing. In StarCraft, when you go to Diablo, there's a lot of things missing in Diablo that seemingly just gets left out. I think it's a cool theory. I think it's a fun theory to think about, but I would never proffer it as my proper theory. I would not. Let's say this. I wouldn't go into respectable speculation corners of the internet and proffer that as an actual theory. Did you thought it through? Well, yeah. I mean, I've thought about a lot of wackier shit than the Nexus theory. But I would put the Nexus theory sort of in the same vein as Anduin being Arthas' son. It's fun to think about, but let's leave it there, you know? It's kind of like kissing your stepsister. It might be fun, but you don't want people to know about it. So, you know. So I'm being changed or different, I think. I wouldn't expect the Life Force Draenei to be in Shadowlands. I kind of think it's Nexus somehow. Why? Yeah, if you keep it as fan fiction, I, again, have no problem with it. And maybe there is some truth to it. Maybe there's some element of it. But you know what? I sort of view it as the same. I think people that want to come up with the Nexus theory are very similar to the people in Warhammer that want to come up with the unification theory of Warhammer. So in Warhammer, you have Warhammer Fantasy and Warhammer 40k. And the two universes share one thing, which is the realm of chaos, or the Immaterium. Their chaos gods are very much the same. They act exactly the same, do exactly the same stuff. But the two universes are in no way, shape, or form connected to each other in any way. There is no connection between the two universes. But there are fans of the Warhammer universe that likes to draw similarities between the two universes and say, but well, actually, it could be, right? I would say it's similar to that, where if you really dive into the unification theory of Warhammer, you realize that it can't really be unified. You have to suspend so many facts in order to get the unification to work. It's fun, and it's fun to imagine, but it can't work in practice. Then was just a bunch of void rays and carriers warping in. Pretty much. Do you guys want to... This is actually an interesting question. Do you guys like the idea of doing more spacefaring in World of Warcraft, or do you prefer the idea of most things sticking to Azeroth herself? More space, so yeah. Because yeah, I wonder what could happen if we started Azeroth Continents over space, but give me a mix of both. Space could be cool, at least if it be near a sun. Azeroth herself, I suppose space theme objects to StarCraft, but Blizzard will never create a new one. So that is true, sadly. And portals to other worlds like Dark Portal and Outland, which I love, but no space travel. Well, when I say space travel, what I'm literally talking about is as we got to, what's it called? Argus, right? It's not like we traveled in space and we each got a spaceship and we had to flew the fucking spaceship, but we did technically travel space in order to get to Argus. So I'm talking about expansions taking place on different planets within the Great Beyond. So maybe we learn of a planet where the light is going absolutely apeshit, and they reach out to us and beg for help. Maybe at the end of the World Soul Saga, we find out that the giant crystal isn't actually a construct, a Titan creation at all. It is actually a giant communication device from a different planet, begging us to send help because they're about to be consumed by a Void Lord or whatever. And now we have to rush towards this planet to try and help this planet out, you know? Ryan, with the $20. Bro, really appreciate you, man. Thank you. You're far too kind, sir. How do you think the Lightforged Draenei will react when the Army of the Light returns in midnight? Will they join the crazy train that's coming, or will they have a civil war of sorts? And how would Velen and Terralion react? So... the Lightforged Draenei have already proven that they are no longer as devout to the light, at least as a full society. If you do the Warlock questline, you very quickly realize that there are members of the Lightforged Draenei that have already accepted the fact that the light isn't the only answer and other answers could actually exist in order to get power. So I expect a contingent of the Lightforged to absolutely join the Army of the Light when the Army of the Light finally arrives. But I don't expect the whole of the Lightforged Draenei. This is sort of where Blizzard... the best use case for Blizzard is to present fractured races. So rather than have a race fully commit to a specific power, you have members of a race commit to a specific power so that players can still make choices. You know, like, I don't want to join the light, so I won't, kind of thing. So I do think some of them... As for Terralion and Velen have already shown moments of truth. Think back to the cinematic, the final words that he says to Illidan Stormrage, as Illidan stays behind. Remember, Velen maintained for a while that Illidan should trust in the purpose. He should trust in the prophecy. And then when Illidan finally sort of taunts him right at the end, he goes, fate had nothing to do with this, right? Our survival was never up to fate. So Velen has already shown an inkling of not blindly trusting in the light. Not just believing that the light is just absolutely good. So I think if the Army of the Light were to arrive, now remember, when we talk about the Army of the Light, we are talking about the alternative Draenor Army of the Light. And they are not good people. If you do the quest line that takes you back to alternative Draenor, the things that they are doing to the races that are left on Azeroth, on Draenor, specifically to the orcs, is absolutely disgusting. I mean, they have lost their minds completely to the light. Turalyon is an interesting one. As things stand right now, I don't see Turalyon joining the Army of the Light, because joining the Army of the Light will almost inevitably mean that Turalyon will be pitted against Illyria, because Illyria obviously cannot be part of the Army of the Light. But what happens if something were to go wrong and Illyria falls to the void? Do you think that that will strengthen Turalyon's resolve in the light? I had the same idea, Harmony. Velen was also shocked when Zero went full fascist light. True. Yeah, you can see Velen is already starting to ask some questions. Not divided, because they believe the infinite truth, so Void Lords follow different plans, meaning the other Void Lords don't want Azeroth to be consumed by Dementius. Ventru, it all depends on what you view as truth, right? Because it's not that the Void follows different truths, it's that they believe all truths. I know that sounds crazy, but they don't follow different truths. They believe all truths to be true. And I think the point they're trying to make there isn't so much that the Void are crazy and believe just everything they hear. They believe in the possibility of chaos. So they understand that time is a chaotic thing and choices are chaotic, and you can never really know what mortals are going to do. So you're able to, through influence, you are able to change the outcome of things to the outcome that you want. Therefore, believing that all truths are possible keeps an open mind towards the range of possibilities of how things can play out, right? So yeah, there is a fundamental difference between those two things. He will defect if they get to extreme. Elodie, that is only assuming that Illyria is still around. I feel like a lot of people are forgetting the short story we got before, I believe, the Shadowlands, when Illyria and Turalyon was on the hunt for Sylvanas. And Illyria was doing all amounts of crazy bullshit with her void power in order to read people's minds, because they wanted to extract information about where Sylvanas may be, oftentimes completely innocent civilians. People who had no fight with Turalyon or Illyria. Illyria would be the one to extract the information. Turalyon would be the one holding them down with the light. So, already in that short story, Turalyon's baimed for a more hardline approach to life is showcased. Turalyon is absolutely not the balanced hero people think him out to be. I think he is balanced at the moment, but I do think he has a capacity to go full-blown light Nazi. Happening WoW that is going to blow our minds. I have a feeling Midnight is going to bring about a Void Lord. We will finally see a proper Void Lord in World of Warcraft. Which is obviously going to be fucking nuts. I think we may also see Sargeras in all of his fullness. So the upcoming expansions feel I have a feeling that Chris Mason is taking the story back to a much darker place than what we've ever been at before. Everything seems to be lining up for it. If you just take the naming schemes of the expansions, you can see that there's a lot of darkness there. You take a lot of the story, it already looks like the lovey-dovey, kissy-kissy friends forever time of World of Warcraft is now coming to an end. It doesn't seem like that's the kind of thing that Chris Mason wants to write, especially considering the fact that Chris Mason is a giant Warhammer 40k fan and also a Warhammer Fantasy fan, and between those two, it's very difficult to know which one is more fucked up. Because they're both pretty fucked up. So I'm of the opinion that this story is about to get a hell of a lot darker, but with that classic Chris Mason twist to it, which I do actually believe has always been Chris Mason. He is sort of like a master of doing very dark storylines, but understanding comedic relief. So he understands that you can't just up the darkness. You can't just constantly blow the darkness in World of Warcraft. It tires players out. So every once in a while, when things get a little bit too dark, there's a comedic moment, there's a funny moment, there's something that happens that just sort of allows the player to let off some steam, and then you build the story back into more darkness. So I do think we're going to see that return very strongly. We spoke about it at the beginning of the stream. One of the brilliant things about Mist of Pandaria is exactly that. Massive parts of the Mist of Pandaria storyline is very, very dark. And yet, there are so many comedic moments that it ends up feeling like a pretty light and fun expansion. But when you really dive into it, it's an expansion where it starts off with us slaughtering each other and basically coming very close to destroying Pandaria as a result of us slaughtering each other, right? So there's a whole lot there where there's comedic moments that break the tension, and then there's tension building moments that reinfuse the tension. Ryan, I hope that answered your question, by the way, because I feel like Velen would probably be the one that keeps his mind, if of course Velen is still around and has not been replaced by someone else. Turalian is a giant question mark at this point. And I think everything that will happen with Turalian will highly depend on what happens to Illyria. Because clearly Illyria is his rock at the moment, and I also believe that Turalian is her rock. If it wasn't for Turalian, Illyria would probably have gone way into the void already. You can hear it in the short story. She's very much aware of how Turalian views her, and that bothers her. So that probably holds her back from truly embracing the power that is within her. But I think the same thing is true of Turalian, where he also doesn't want to go too deep into the light because, well, the love of his life is very much part of the void. And so he realizes that if he accepts the light too much, this would drive a massive wedge between them. But what happens if they themselves are completely separated through perhaps unseen things happening and things that they may not even have control over? Visions from the void that show, and visions that break through and prove to Illyria that Turalian is in fact already over her. And this forces Illyria to completely fall to the void. And that would absolutely mean that Turalian would embrace the light even further. Harmony, so I don't know. I feel like how would Illyria be considered the child of light and shadow though? Because Illyria isn't light. She's never been light. All the time that she spent with Turalian in the presence of the army of the light, she could never get a hold of the light. Like, the light just didn't work for her. And that is why she was so relieved when she finally found Locust Walker, because she took to the void like a moth to a flame. And the void took to her in the same way. So how would Illyria be qualified as a child of light? Of shadow, sure, but of light specifically, how would that work? This Big Sun by her family? Yeah, so we've gone down that road before with Little Moon, Lady Moon, and Big Sun. But outside of it being nicknames, there is literally no other explanation given for why those nicknames exist. None. We don't know why they have those nicknames, they just do. And it may just have been nicknames. Elodie, I also lean towards Arator, but what Harmony is saying is interesting insofar as Arator could be a red herring. Because after reading that short story, Arator is the most obvious one. Like, if you read that short story and you didn't come away thinking Arator is the child of light and shadow, you weren't reading the short story correctly. You should go back and read it again. But oftentimes writers will do something like that, and that's why it's called a red herring. You make it super obvious that it might be this thing, but it is in fact not that thing. So once you include the red herring bit, then you can't use the dragon tattoos as an example, because the dragon tattoos also play into the red herring. Having Void and Light dragon tattoos? By carrying a stone of Tyrallian Insider, Void and Light have a precedent in the lore for shifting from one to the other. Well, actually, just the Naru have that already precedent established. And that's just the Naru. We don't know of other creatures that can do that. It's the child... Let me see. I can't remember now. I'm gonna have to Google that. Yeah, but disc priests simply tap into different powers. They don't become those powers. They use those powers, right? There's a major difference between becoming part of the light and basically accepting the light in all of its fullness into your body and creating your own or simply channeling it. It's like warlocks. A warlock uses the twisting nether, but it is not a demon. Where is that fucking whisper? Zira said something about the child of light and shadow will bring. It's because it's not a whisper. It's a prophecy. And it will bring balance, I think. Let me just see. Remember, was them helping in Legion? The lights. So here's the thing: the light's prophecy suggests that the child of light and shadow will grant the light victory. Right, so it will put an end to the war between the light and the void, and the light will be victorious. So the light views the child of light and shadow as a prize that should be fought over, and whoever wins the battle. The void have never really made a play on the child of light and shadow, which is quite interesting. They don't seem to give much of a thought. Now we know that the prophecy is the light's prophecy. So it's not a prophecy that exists generally speaking. It's a prophecy that exists only for the light. And that's what they believe. Now, it might be completely different. Maybe the void is making plays for the child of light and shadow, but we haven't seen it yet. What is Locust Walker saying? Her, you're unbalanced? Yeah. So that struck me as well when Locust Walker told her that you are unbalanced. But she's unbalanced because she has not fully accepted the void. She is still holding on to a different part of herself, right? But that different part of herself could be her humanity. It doesn't have to be the light. Do you think Illyria can change dramatically like the Naru, seeming she drew in its essence? No. Because as I've already explained, I think it's only the Naru that can have those dramatic changes. And it would kind of make sense because Xalatath says about the Naru, the Naru view us as enemies, as monsters, enemies to be resisted at every turn, but we do not share that view. They are simply brothers and sisters who have lost their way. They will return to the masters in time. A lot of people make the mistake of thinking that Xalatath is talking about the light there. She's talking about the Naru specifically in that scenario, which suggests that the Naru is either a being that was created neutral and then taken control of by the light, or more likely, the Naru was once a mortal race ordered by the Titans, given to the light, but similarly to how we were turned into constructs and then the old gods re-gifted us the curse of flesh, the Naru never received their curse of flesh. And so they are trapped as servants of the light and of the Titans. But this is why they can turn back into the void, because they were always, they weren't always servants of the light. So that's another one of those that it could be. Switching armor of the Wardens, I don't think that's a coincidence. That's my thoughts, honestly, but I don't think she can do it on her own. She needs help from the Sunwell, which is why it reacted to her by the way it did. It's possible. Demon Hunter's souls become demonic and bound to fel only after multiple demons are consumed. The Naru, beings that talk with music, a song, and can go from void to light, just saying, Radiant Song could be Azeroth falling to light corruption, thanks to Zaval nearly killing her. That's only if we assume that the Radiant Song comes from Azeroth, right? I don't know what I assume. At this point, I think I'm still holding on to the idea that the Naru or that the Radiant Song isn't from Azeroth at all. I don't know why, but I don't like the idea of it being from Azeroth. I kind of like the idea of Azeroth never having spoken to anyone, you know? Like, Azeroth isn't speaking to anyone. She's just off in her corner, growing and becoming something greater than what she is. Specifically because the stuff that Azeroth did tell Magni really backfired. It wasn't, not all of it was good news, which would make Azeroth not as powerful as I think she should be. But then again, that's just based on my speculation of what I think Azeroth is. If Azeroth was speaking to Magni, questionable, I know, then why didn't he hear Radiant Song at all? Aston, that's part of the reason why, right? I don't believe that Azeroth was speaking to him. Because he doesn't hear the Radiant Song, and you would think that the speaker of Azeroth, like, not even self-proclaimed, he was proclaimed as the speaker of Azeroth by the mother, right? Or mother, whatever the fuck her name is. She proclaimed him as the speaker of Azeroth, which is also very interesting, you know? A Titan construct proclaims that this one is speaking for Azeroth. But if, so your qualifying statement is if Magni was indeed speaking to Azeroth, why didn't he hear the Radiant Song? I don't know. It could be that he didn't want to listen, and that's why he didn't hear it. Because we do have in the beginning, when you go to Magni, we have the questline Data where Magni is angry with Azeroth. He doesn't even know that the Radiant song was playing because he was angry with her because she stopped speaking to him after N'Zoth died. And so it could be that she couldn't speak to him because he refused to listen. So he blocked himself effectively to her. And it could be that that's why he passed out. Because Azeroth has been trying harder and harder to speak to him. But because he's angry with her, she can't get through to him. And then when he finally does open himself up, it's like he's being hit by a ton of bricks, right? Because obviously, let's imagine Azeroth speaking. Let's imagine there's a power level, right? So Azeroth is using 10% of her power to speak to the mortals on Azeroth. And then she tries to speak to Magni as well, but Magni for some reason doesn't respond. Then she increases it to 15%. Magni doesn't respond. Increases it to 20%. Magni doesn't respond. 30%, 40%, 50%, 60%. She's now at 70% power. Magni has closed himself off because he's angry at her. Speak to the hand. I don't want to hear it. And then suddenly Magni takes his hand away and all of that power comes through and it just slaps him, right? And knocks him off unconscious. So that is what I would argue, if it is indeed the voice of Azeroth, that could explain it. No? Yeah, Kimmy, sorry. I'm going from data mine stuff to actual game stuff to data mine stuff. I'm jumping sort of through everything. As in, the problem is we don't know what Magni saw or didn't see. Right, because Magni tries to communicate with Azeroth and then he gets knocked unconscious. So we don't know if he saw a Radiant song or if he didn't see anything or what he saw. We just know that he got knocked unconscious. And as far as I know, we don't know what happens to him afterwards. Right, he has not woken up yet, at least not from the data mines I've seen, unless I've missed some stuff. Turning off the earthen, that is how he became a diamond. Then a titan became a diamond. Then a titan construct calls him the speaker and uses him as a pawn. Datamine states he heard the same voice, but a very powerful one, much more powerful, that knocked him unconscious. Yeah, but he's still unconscious, right? We know that we're taking him somewhere to wake him up, but I don't know if we have any information about what he does after he wakes up. Do we? Because I haven't seen anything about that. Looks like he is turning into stone too. One thing I'm thinking about, the Radiant song and various Whispers visions don't all have to be the same thing. It kind of sounds like a lot of chatter on the cosmic radio. Well, yeah, we could make the argument that a lot of different things are speaking at the same time. But the problem with that is right now, the only voice that seems to come through is the Radiant song. So he gives his diamond shell to the earthen and goes back to mortal. Yeah, I know that part. I'm talking about, does he say what he saw? So does he actually go into detail about what knocked him unconscious? So why was he unconscious after he heard the voice of Azeroth, so to speak? Yeah. So I know he becomes earthen again, or I know he becomes mortal again, and this changes things, not that I've heard, not so far anyway. Yeah, it was my understanding that Blizzard didn't want to release his vision, because it's one of those things that they're keeping under wraps. They're keeping it as a secret. That's why I asked if it has been data mined yet, because I read the quest and the quest dialogue for Magni basically turning to flesh again, but nowhere there does it state at all what he saw or what he went through. Just that he passed out when he tried to listen to Azeroth. So we'll probably have to wait and see if there is. What's interesting is that after that experience, he decides to go back to being mortal. What do you think could trigger such a response? What could he have seen that makes him go, fuck no. Let's go back to being mortal. Elodie, what do you mean? It doesn't make sense to you. What doesn't make sense to you? The Titans' plans? You think he saw the Titans' plans and he was like, oh shit, wait, they're gonna come mind control me again? I don't want to be any part. I don't want any part of this. Lodi, I have no idea what it is. Colors are so important when they incorporate them anywhere. Good example of it is the difference between Raw Shadow, which is purple, and Cosmic Void, which is displayed as blue and purple. Yeah, I mean, I've spoken to Blizzard developers about this. The colors are something that they spend a lot of time on in World of Warcraft, getting color theory just right. I think he is going to choose to be mortal so he can feel again. Brando, but if we are heading into an expansion where the voice of Azeroth is speaking, the speaker of Azeroth would be super important, no? So my thinking is that the King of Diamonds have been made a pawn is exactly that. I think what Magni heard, and the reason Magni immediately undimified himself, is because when he saw that vision, he realized that he has been made a pawn. He had been made a pawn, and he wants no part of it, which is why he willingly moves himself back into mortal form. That is at least my theory. Now, I mean, it could literally be wrong, right? Because we genuinely don't know. Returning to flesh, a gift from the old gods, could be the act of being a pawn. Also possible. Right. Also possible. The problem is that until we get the actual expansion, we will not know. I can say, though, that we're only in the alpha. We have so little information. And there is more speculation to be done just in the lead up to the expansion launching. The expansion has not even launched yet. And there is more speculation now than what there's been in, I would argue, the whole of the Shadowlands and most of Dragonflight. You know, in Dragonflight, we were sort of speculating about, you know, why Veranoth turned and what this, what that. Shadowlands was almost no speculation because no one knew what the hell was going on. And here we are just talking endlessly about the possibilities of what the War Within, what the story could be. And we don't even have the story yet. Like, we only have bits and pieces of the story. And we're already having the time of our lives. So what would you speculate Magni heard instead of Azeroth? I think it was some Titan given everywhere Heart of Azeroth, everything and everyone, Mother and all the Titan constructs. It really is a good time to be a lore lover. True. What if Magni did hear Azeroth's voice for the first time? What if that is why he's returning to flesh? What if it's Azeroth informing him that he has not heard from her? And that the Radiant song is also not from him. Oh, from her. And that's why he's moving away from what he was. Like, that could be a thing, right? It could be that hearing the Radiant song, he recognized that the Radiant song is completely different to the voices that he heard before. And so he knows that whatever this song is, it's not the same as the one he heard before. So that could be a thing. There's like a million different things that it could be. I have no idea what it would be. Chris Mason is feeding as well, for sure. True. I don't know. Wait. I don't know what he heard. It could just be the raw power of Azeroth unchained by Titan magic. Yeah, true. The voice is more powerful and Azeroth is more powerful than Titans. Yep. What if the Diamond King has been made a pawn? Was Magni being a pawn of the Titans, and that the voice he heard was from Titan systems imprisoning Azeroth, trying to keep her asleep? Well, T-King, the only problem I have with that is that all of the voice lines that Magni heard from Azeroth, seemingly, led to the freeing of N'Zoth and the breaking of the final prison. Now, you could make the argument that the Titans were sort of playing 5D chess there, in that they realize that their prisons aren't foolproof, and so they realize that we as mortals are in fact strong enough to take down the old gods, since we have already done it before, and so they decided to use Magni to get us to take care of N'Zoth, so that they could finally have Azeroth for themselves without any Void influence. Not realizing that the Void was literally waiting for that. The Void wanted their old gods to be killed, so that they could bring forth the Void Lords. So that's definitely another explanation for what it could be. Mason still had some major story hang-ups, such as Illidan's death and Burning Crusade and others. I'm hoping we don't get that as a replacement for Denuser, but I am genuinely excited. Copy, when you say Mason had some hang-ups, what do you mean? Then re-originate the planet again, since they can't do that whenever they want due to their oath to life. Raymer, so the Titans don't actually have an oath to life. When you say oath to life, what do you mean? Because we know what the Titans' version of life looks like. And it is not mortal life that the Titans have an oath to. It's just life. So if you do the time-traveling, sort of timey-wimey bullshit in Dragonflight, where you go to the different timelines, one of those timelines are completely controlled by the Titans. Because what you have to remember with World of Warcraft, with our timeline, okay? The Titans were not done on Azeroth in our timeline. What happened in our timeline was that the Titans were receiving major pushback from the Void and their armies, which really slowed down their taking over of Azeroth. Then they received word from Agrimar that Sargeras was going absolutely fucking mental on the other side of the Great Beyond. And so they left in order to go deal with Sargeras, who was now on a whole new path of destroying all life in the universe. And they wanted to go tell Sargeras that they had just found the most powerful Titan they have ever seen, and that he should calm down because this Titan is going to end the war with the Void. What they could not foresee is that Sargeras wasn't going to let them go out of that meeting alive. He was going to bring a permanent end to that. Once he cut them up and killed them, their souls spent the next thousands of years, how many that may have been, we don't really know, basically floating around in the twisting or in the Great Beyond, because they didn't have their bodies and they did not have access to the Pantheon in order to rebuild their bodies. So they were just sort of coaxing along. So their plans were very much disrupted on Azeroth. But if you go back to the different timelines, you do get to a timeline where the Titans absolutely won. So Sargeras didn't do his absolute bonkers bullshit of trying to kill all life on Azeroth, and the Void Lords the Old Gods were destroyed, and so they could completely take over and order Azeroth. And on that planet, mortal lives as we know them, the humans, the orcs, and those, they are almost extinct. And those, if there are any tribes of mortals still living on Azeroth, they're most likely in hiding, because the whole planet is taken over by massive creatures. Very dangerous creatures that is the antithesis to mortal life. So, clearly, the Titans, their oath to life is not an oath to mortal life. That's why Algalon, the Observer, was absolutely going to re-originate Azeroth. And it was only when Algalon realized that we are indeed powerful enough to basically stop the old gods that Algalon stopped and said, okay, I won't re-originate the planet. Because we proved that we are strong enough to protect Azeroth. But if we failed there, Algalon would 100% have re-originated the planet. Like 100% would have done so. That's because the Titans have, Aston, the Titans have one fundamental flaw. Unlike the old gods that view all timelines as just timelines and no one timeline is better than the other timelines. Fazix, how you doing? Jason, how you doing, bro? The Titans, absolutely. And this may just have been Amanthul being on a big dick ride where he wanted to show everyone how big his penis was. But Amanthul declared our timeline to be the true timeline. And he did this long before they even discovered Azeroth. And that is why all of the Titans have been forced to accept this timeline and only this timeline as the true timeline. So when Nosdormu and the Bronze Dragons are basically employed to protect this timeline, it's not a timeline that they sort of post hoc decided this is the true timeline. It's that Amanthul already decided at the start that this is the true timeline. And he refuses to accept any of the other timelines. So he can't now turn around and say, oh, guys, you know that timeline where we actually won and we control all of Azeroth? Let's make that one the true timeline. Because then that would completely defeat the purpose, right? Because then it isn't a true timeline. It's just your chosen timeline. Now, I don't think Amanthul is doing this because he's dishonest or because he just, he wants to hide it from the other Titans. I think Amanthul himself suffers from this idea that this is the true timeline and that there are no other timelines out there that matter, at least. The Titan souls slammed into their keepers on Azeroth after surgery. Garrosh killed them. I don't know about that because you see the Titan souls inside on Argus, right, being tortured and sort of trying. The succubi were trying to twist the Titans in their soul form, right, and then once we kill them, we free the Titan souls, and then the Titan souls make their way to the Pantheon. So I'm not entirely sure if they would have, because we would have seen that, right? If their souls did slam into their keepers, they would have been far more active on Azeroth, I feel. Aston, so there's a number of really cool, interesting things about the Titans that we don't really understand, because in some ways, or there are sources that suggest that the timeline, the Titans do not exist across all different timelines, and that the Titans only exist on one timeline. So they can move to other timelines, but they do not exist in all of the other timelines at the same time. How real or how true that is, that's difficult, right? Because we don't know, because everything that we know about the Titans come from the Titans. So it can be propaganda, it can be lies, it can be anything. You don't know with the Titans, because outside of, as far as authoritative sources go for us as players, the only source of authority that we have is the Titans. Because the Void doesn't really write books. And if they were, would you read a book written by the Void? It would be a nightmare trying to read a book written by the Void. And none of the other cosmological forces appear to be as active as the Titans are. So the Titans are basically the messengers of propaganda. They are the ones that share all of the knowledge. So all of the knowledge you have to take from the Titans as knowledge biased towards the Titans. All right, as a final moment, guys, before I go, and before I let you guys loose on this weekend so you can take it by the balls and do whatever you want with it, is there anything else that you think we should be talking about or we should discuss? Short versions, of course. If it is too long, we'll have to table that for next week. But, yeah, just as a final moment before I go. That doesn't work here. Arcane mages. What about arcane mages? They suck. I just rolled back to Arcane and Mr. Pandaria, and I do not like it. Frost is a lot more fun, and I'm going to try Fire next. Lodi, that's also fair. You can also do it on Twitch, by the way. We stream on Twitch most days. How do Elec make Taladorian cheese? I have to know. Milk, I guess. I don't know. I just want to say, the Void told Illyria that Sylvanas served the true enemy, which would have been the jailer. Yeah. So then the light struck a bargain with Zuval. The Starhammer, how you doing? What is my favorite beer? I don't really have one. Starhammer. I don't drink beer. I don't drink, right? I don't drink alcohol at all. But back when I still drank, I would say Castle Lager was my favorite. It's a lager. I know it's not technically a beer. So if you are pushing me to get a beer from me, then I would probably say Black Label. Black Label is a pretty good beer. It tastes very similar for those in Britain calling black. So it tastes very similar to calling black. It has a pretty strong taste. It's all right. But yeah, I don't drink, so... Unless the jailer was unknowingly serving another master. Could happen, also. Do you think Sylvanas will reappear in the War Within? Yes. I don't see how we go to midnight and make our way to Quel'Thalas and Sylvanas doesn't show up. I just don't see it. Didn't know you did not drink. Have a great weekend. Oh, no. I mean, it's not like I advertise. Oh, I don't drink, so it's perfectly fine. I used to drink a lot, but I don't drink anymore. Haven't for a long time. Oh, yeah. And you should all like the video. Just tap that little button. Spank it like a little street urchin. So why did the light want Zuval to shoot Azeroth, if not to flood her wound? Epithulu, it is so difficult for me not to make everything you just fucking said there sexual. Hey, do you even know what you have said? There's no way that isn't at least somewhat sexual. So, why did the light want Zuval to shoot Azeroth? I don't know if they wanted Zuval to shoot Azeroth. I think they wanted Zuval to dominate the universe. Because if you think about how the light operates, they're not big on free will. You know, free will can suck a bit of a dick when it comes to the light. They're very much sort of pro-domination magic. And I think that may have been it, right? Oh shit, Ryan with the 50 USD. Holy shit, ladies and gentlemen. Can I get some hearts in chat? Can I get some hearts in chat? You mad lad. Thank you so much for the $50, man. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Nothing to ask. Thank you for all you do, Akko. Much love to you, man. Until next time, it is my absolute pleasure to entertain you guys. I really appreciate the dono. You're far too kind, sir. It's not necessary, but it is appreciated. So thank you so much for that. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Azeroth queues up. Wake Me Up Inside by Evanescence. Zuval and Sargeras hear it and sing back up. I mean, it's not even a theory that I've considered before. But if you think about what Zuval wanted to do, dominate the universe and unite them against the common enemy, and you think about how the light operates with the army of the light and what the light did on Alternative Draenor with the orcs, then that kind of the same thing, no? So it does make sense that the light probably did strike a deal with the enemy of all, Zuval, in order to dominate the universe. because they both want the same thing, and that is to defeat the Void Lords. This, of course, should make you immediately question everything the Grimoire of the Shadowlands states, and also the Chronicle states about the cosmological forces, because we are told that the cosmological forces sort of operate in tandem with one another. They keep each other balanced. They keep each other in focus. They are all required in order for life to exist. But how is it possible that almost every other force is deathly afraid of the Void Lords? What are the Void Lords that they are so much more powerful than any of the other cosmological forces? Why is it that none of the forces can stand against the Void Lords alone? This, by its very nature, should make you think the origin story of the universe can't be believed, because if the Void and the Light were the first two powers, it would suggest that they are equal in power. If all of the other cosmological forces came as a result of that creation, then all of them must be equal in power. But if all of them are so afraid of the Void Lords that unless the entire universe is dominated, they won't be able to survive the Void Lords, this suggests that the Void Lords are not, as it were, part of the original creation. They are something completely different, and they are something that is much stronger than any of the other cosmological powers. Brickle J, from what I've seen, none of the other forces care about that. It's not obvious to me that any of the other forces seem to care. I mean, Zuval wanted to dominate all of us. With Arthas, he wanted to kill all of us, to dominate us in order to bind us so that we could fight the Void. Clearly, he doesn't give a shit about life. And then he wanted to dominate the whole universe in order to unite against the Void. Again, not really care about life. It's more as if they care about their position within the universe rather than the people living within it. Want to control us? Arthas wanted to use us as well. The Void doesn't care. It will just replace us. Britgul J, remember that is only based on what we think about the Void. Whereas if you listen to Xal'atath, if you listen to N'Zoth, they do not hate us. In fact, N'Zoth spends most of Battle for Azeroth testing us to see if we're strong enough. Strong enough for what? The Void. I don't think the Void is the enemy that we have come to believe them to be. Not that they're friends, but I don't know if they. I don't think they actually want to end all life, because they don't ever say that. No, they never make the claim that they want to end all life. If they wanted to end all life, why give the curse of flesh? Why make beings flesh? If you wanted life, if you didn't want life, the curse of flesh makes no sense. Are the OG first ones of the Shadowlands changed my mind? It's also possible. There's a lot of things that's possible. Obviously, we'd have to wait and see. Did the light attack Revendreth when Zuval was the Arbiter, or the robot was Arbiter? I think the robot was already Arbiter at that point. Because yeah, I don't know, actually. Did we ever get any sort of clarification on when the light attacked Revendreth? I can't remember. I can't remember if I've ever read like an exact timeline of when the light attacked, just that they have attacked. Gift of Flesh was just Void messing up the Titan's plans, though. Yeah, but if you just wanted to mess up the Titan's plans, you could just kill the constructs. You know, you didn't have to give them the Curse of Flesh, especially considering that you, as an old god, are well aware of what's going to happen to you in the future at the hands of these fleshy things. Right? You know that these fleshy things are going to kill all of you and ruin your plans. So why make them in the first place? Fed to us by the Titans, I think. I agree with that. The light wanted to show death its place when it did that. I forgot to say that, though. Steve, how you doing, bro? Not death, but Ravendreth, it's specifically. The other didn't come to help them either. Yeah, that's all. We've spoken about that before. That is a giant question mark in my head. Does not void corruption? Rodane didn't turn to flesh. Could the Arbiter have been an ordered fragment of another being, like, say, maybe Argus? No. No, because we already know, right? Argus is the thing that took the Arbiter offline, and we know that the Arbiter was a construct infused with at least part of Zuval's essence, and that's how the Arbiter became the Arbiter. To be fair, there is a lot of lore in Shadowlands, just the gameplay, just hid, and it's frustrating. Why does Void on the Cosmic Map have 4 titles and everything else has 3 items? Christopher, because I don't believe the Titans actually know what the Void is. I don't think anything actually knows what the Void is. They've just decided that this is what the Void is, and that is part of the reason why I believe the Void to be the only natural part of our universe, and not, unlike the others, it was not created by anything, it is naturally here. Construct Arbiter had Zuval's hot saw paddle driving her chest. Yep, I remember that. Did Anduin become a paladin yet? No, Slash, no. If you read the short story, Anduin will never be a paladin. You actually get a nice bit of explanation for why Anduin chose to be a priest instead of a paladin. Anduin did receive proper weapons training, and he was being trained originally as a paladin, and then they realized that he is not a he doesn't want to kill or do harm. He actually wants to help and save. And so his own instructors told him to become a priest instead of a paladin. Because, yeah, it's not really his thing. So I don't think he will ever be a paladin. I think Curse of Flesh is from Azeroth and not the old gods. Her spirit presence overloaded the earthen matrix and reverted them back to dwarves. Raymer, that's a theory that I've had as well, and it could be true, because we have only the word of the Titans on that one, right? At least he didn't get forced into it, like Warrior Arthas. To be fair, though, Arthas forced himself into it. But Arthas wasn't forced. Unless, of course, we do say that forcing yourself is still a form of force, which it probably is, but Arthas just did it because you cannot be king of Lordaeron if you do not serve the light. And so that's why Arthas did it. Anduin is inevitable. Well, I think Anduin is going to be a Shadow Priest. I think that's the thing people should be excited by. I think Shadow Priest Anduin arc is coming. And it's going to be glorious. He's not a paladin, he's a priest in full plate with a sword, totally different. Basically, he just doesn't want to join the pally organizations. Darkscream, not quite. Because you have to remember, priests are servants of the Church of Light, but mainly focused around helping. There are some priests who have turned to Shadow as a way to do combat, but the overwhelming majority of priests serve, right? And they serve to aid. They don't serve to fight. Paladins, on the other hand, are the far more fanatical wing of the Church of Light. They are the military arm, so to speak. So from their perspective, the only reason you have such a thing as a holy paladin is to enable the other paladins to fight harder and not die. And also, if we were to be really pedantic, in the lore, there exists no such thing as a holy paladin or a retribution paladin or a protection paladin. In the lore, a paladin is just a paladin, and all paladins have access to all powers. The only difference between a retribution paladin and a protection paladin would be, did he take a shield or did he take an axe, right? From a lore perspective, though, there is no such thing as different classes, or specs rather. There's classes but not specs. So, yeah, I would argue it's very much it's a temperament thing. Anduin doesn't have the temperament to be a paladin. He loves the light and he wants to serve the light, but he has no temperament to be a paladin. Paladins want to fight, they want to go to war. It's not true. There is a story about a red paladin teaming up with a Tauren rogue named Invisible. Yeah, the story is meant to show players, or at least soldiers. If you look at Khadgar has power from every single one of the school of mage. The same with Jaina. Every single one of the school of mage, right? You're a mage, right? You're not a specific type of mage. You're just a mage. You may prefer certain spells, like Jaina, for example, prefers frost magic to most others, but she does have all of the other magics with her. That is why oftentimes they can use powers that we can't, right? They can do everything else, right? This was said by one of the developers, actually. I believe it was during one of the BlizzCons. Someone asked about one of the cutscenes where someone had a power that the players don't have, and then this was said. I can't remember, but Anduin, the reason Anduin carries a sword, just FYI, is he is very well trained in sword magic. Or not sword magic, in the art of sword fighting. He just didn't like it. Should be a Death Knight and fight against all cosmic forces. Why would he be a Death Knight? In the story, Anduin couldn't use the light, which is very interesting. Same in the trailer. Lol. Lego shadowing. It's not... Well, we don't know if Anduin couldn't use the light. We know that Anduin doesn't want to try. Kyle P, thanks for the $2, man. Really appreciate you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Clip what? Let me talk to you about our Lord and Savior. Paladin, my God is better than yours. Peasant. Yeah, pretty much. Mass Race and BFA trailer. Yeah, I think he's talking about the newest trailers and stuff. But if you read the story, if you read the short story again, focus on Anduin isn't incapable. It's not like Thrall. So Thrall tried to use the elements, but the elements would not answer to him, right? And he tried multiple times, the elements would not answer to him. I still maintain that that was his own mental block, right? It wasn't that the elements wouldn't answer him, it's that Thrall stopped believing in himself, and therefore the elements couldn't get through to him. With Anduin, it's not so much that there isn't light, it's that Anduin doesn't want to. He's afraid. Because he's afraid that should he use the light, it will not answer. That's his major fear right now. He can't imagine a world where he has lost his access to the light. And so he doesn't want to use the light because he fears that if he tries and he can't, then that confirms that he's now lost the light. Right? You're very serious when talking about the Tauren Rogue. It made the statement very funny. Calby, if you made a joke, I'm sorry. I'm just sort of reading through everyone's comments as quickly as possible so I can get to everyone. So I don't even focus necessarily on what is or isn't a joke. But hey, if I made you laugh a little bit, that's good. Right? That's my job. with the Death Knight in a fan way. Death Knight care for the dead. The empathy Anduin has and the damage he sustained would make him a perfect jailer in its true capacity. I'm sorry, bro. Well, thank you very much. Really appreciate ya. It was his mental block confirmed in Shaman Order Hall. Death is not allied to the light or the void. Alright. I think that's then going to be it, ladies and gentlemen. We have been live for about 3 hours. I actually just want these to be about 2 hours. But I don't think at this point we're ever going to just have a 2-hour conversation. Every single time we go live, it turns into a 3-hour conversation. Because we're having too much fun, and you guys keep distracting me, and then we keep talking about all sorts of match shit. And we go way too deep into this stuff. Which is your fault. I blame all of you, chat. Aha! All right, ladies and gentlemen, I really appreciate all of you for coming out and hanging out with me, for spending your day with me, whatever time of the day it is for you. Thank you for that. Thank you for making my Friday evening so much better. Ryan, thank you so much for all the donos. Really appreciate you. Kyle for the $2. Really appreciate you. And to everyone that slapped the like button and just hung out and chatted, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope I provided you with a little bit of entertainment on this Friday evening. Ladies and gentlemen, take care of yourselves. Have a wonderful weekend. If I don't see you again, I might be live tomorrow. I might not. It all depends on what I'm going to be doing. What's for dinner? Steak. Only steak in little cubes on sticks. Susatis, we call them. I don't know if you guys call them kebabs or whatever. But yeah. Steak. But yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, I really appreciate all of you from the bottom of my heart. Take care of yourselves. Enjoy your weekend. If I don't see you again, I will definitely see you next Friday for another live stream. As always, be good to each other. Be kind to each other. And I will see all of you in the next one. Peace.